With version 1.3 kicking it off with one of the best characters in the game being Yanagi, they are definitely not stopping when it comes to the second half, which will be featuring another top tier character and is in fact our first male S-rank character since launch, being Lyta. Now with Lyta's release being under a couple of weeks away, I'm sure a lot of players are very eager to pull for him, and so with that, I'll be going through Lyta's Ascension material so you can utilize him at his best on release, his best team synergies you would want to consider, viable W engines to use, disc drive sets to farm, and ultimately, for those that are unsure, if you should summon for Lyta. Just before we jump into it, as always, would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel for more ZenlessZoneZero content and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Now kicking it off with Lyta's Ascension materials, considering that he is a fire type stun character, you will of course then need 4 basic stun certification seals, 32 advanced stun certification seals, and 30 buster certification seals in order to ascend Lyta. As for maxing out his skills, you would require 25 basic fire chips, 75 advanced fire chips, 250 specialized fire chips, and 5 hamster cage passes if you are going all the way. Now in regards to the expert challenge, you will want to obtain 60 crimson ore drops, and as for the notorious hunt, you will need to pick up 9 scarlet engines. Of course, with all of these materials, you will require 3.7 million dennies, so just ensure you do have enough to actually utilize the materials you have pre-farmed. Now moving on to Lyta's team synergies. As mentioned, Lyta is a fire type stun character, but the unique aspect of Lyta's kit is that he will in fact be able to buff both fire and ice type characters, since his core passives can lower ice and fire resistance on enemies and further increase fire and ice damage dealt from his allies. Additionally, his core passive is activated by either characters from the same faction or attack type characters, which is the exact same requirement as our current best stun character Changli. So with that, one of Lyta's best teams on release would be alongside Ellen and Sokaku, given that Ellen is an attacker which will be able to activate Lyta's core passive and is an ice type DPS. So Lyta would be able to increase Ellen's ice damage and reduce ice resistance on enemies. In addition, Lyta is able to stun enemies longer than usual, so he would be able to extend the burst window for Ellen to deal even more DPS. Then with Sokaku providing 1000 flat attack to all allies along with increasing ice damage by 20% through her core passives, Ellen would be capable of dealing a significant amount of damage. However, there are a few slight complications with this team, since even though Lyta can buff both ice and fire damage along with reducing fire and ice resistance, it doesn't change the fact that he is still a fire character and will only be able to deal fire damage. So with that, Sokaku's ice damage buff for the team wouldn't benefit Lyta at all. Also, a strength of the Mono Ice team is that it does have the ability to constantly freeze enemies, given there are 3 ice type characters building up ice anomaly. So with Lyta being a fire character, it would reduce the rate of ice anomaly build-up from the team. However, that does now mean the team would have access to triggering disorder, which would be beneficial towards the team's total DPS. So there would be both pros and cons. Either way, Lyta would be an amazing character for Ellen and a great replacement for Lycan if you don't have him. But if you already do have Lycan and only intend to use Lyta with Ellen, then pulling for Lyta may not be completely worth it, considering how solid Lycan still is as a stun character. Now another great team for Lyta would definitely be the Mono Fire team, consisting of Soldier 11, Lyta, and either Bernice or Lucy. With Soldier 11, her core passive allows her to deal 10% more fire damage unconditionally, but when attacking stunned enemies, the effect is further enhanced by an additional 22.5%, bringing the fire damage increase to a total of 32.5%. So with that core passive alone, it allows Soldier 11 and Lyta to literally be a match made in heaven, since Lyta will enable Soldier 11 to deal more fire damage and reduce fire resistance on enemies, but more importantly, due to the fact that Lyta will be able to stun enemies very quick and for longer than usual, he would be capable of providing more uptime to Soldier 11's enhanced damage buff from her core passive. So Lyta would be an amazing character for Soldier 11 as they do synergize extremely well. Then with Bernice, along with the fact that she will be able to deal great DPS, she will be able to constantly ban enemies as she is an anomaly DPS, which will provide more uptime for the 4-piece effect on the Inferno Metal set for Soldier 11. However, if you don't have Bernice, Lucy would be a solid replacement as a fire support character, given she can deal damage off field and will provide up to 600 flat attack to the team. Though between the two, Bernice would be a much more powerful option, but either team variation would be great overall. As for the last team composition Lighter would be amazing in, it wouldn't exactly be accessible on Lighter's release, but given how much potential it holds, I do feel obligated to mention that Miyabi, Lighter and Bernice will not only be one of Lighter's best teams, but arguably one of the best teams in the game. Miyabi has been recently confirmed to drop in version 1.4, which will be right after Lighter's banner, and as for her element, it does clearly look unique to Miyabi, but still looks very similar to the ice element. So it could be some sort of variation of the ice element such as Super Ice, or as many people have been speculating, it could be a dual element with the symbol portraying both ice and fire. Though regardless, Miyabi will still be linked to the ice element, and so with that, Lighter would be able to buff Miyabi's ice damage significantly and provide an extended burst window through stunning enemies. In addition, Lighter will be capable of buffing Bernice's damage as well, so you would then have two DPS characters buffed up and dealing a ton more damage. Lastly, there will be amazing synergy between Miyabi and Bernice, given they are both anomaly characters able to trigger disorder. Also, Bernice being a sub-DPS character will provide Miyabi, which will most likely be a main DPS character, with as much field time as she requires. So this team synergizes extremely well, with Lighter literally being the backbone to it, providing a ton of value to both of his allies. Now those are some of Lighter's more noticeable teams, but considering that he is a stun character, it does mean you can utilize him just as a standard stunner and can place him literally on any team. But given he does specialize in buffing both fire and ice type characters, Lighter would certainly be a lot more valuable alongside those specific attributes. Now as for Lighter's viable W engines, and as usual the best W engine will be Lighter's signature, given it will be tailored for him. Also, considering how the last limited stun W engine being Changli's is capable of buffing the entire team's damage, I would definitely assume for Lighters to follow the same trend and will provide some sort of damage increase for allies. So with that in mind, if you do want the best Lighter build, then his signature W engine will definitely be a must. However, there are some alternatives Lighter can utilize, and his best would in fact be Changli's W engine, given it does have a higher base attack than the other W engines and is the only W engine currently that can buff the entire team. As when Lighter deals basic attacks, he will acquire stacks of Terrific, and for each stack, it will increase his own impact, and once Lighter reaches 15 stacks, he will be able to provide a 20% damage increase for the entire team. So the passive for the Ice J Teapot W engine is extremely valuable for pretty much any stun character that utilizes basic attacks, and so would be Lighter's best alternative. In addition, there are two other S-rank W engines which are pretty much similar in value, and the first being Hellfire Gears, which does increase energy regen for the equipper when off field, and when using an EX special attack, the equipper's impact is further increased along with having an impact main stat. Then there's the Restrained, which also has an impact main stat, and is capable of increasing damage and daze from basic attacks when dealing attacks on enemies. So either of these two W engines would be great alternatives, but since Hellfire Gears can ultimately provide more impact overall, it would likely be the better option. As for A-rank alternatives, the Steam Oven will be the best and the only one I would recommend, since even though it does have an energy regen main stat of 50%, the passive and max refinement is capable of providing up to 25.6% impact by just consuming energy. So the Steam Oven W engine could even contend with S-rank alternatives due to the massive impact boost it provides. So those would be Lighter's viable W engines, which all do provide a good amount of value, but as I mentioned, if you want the best build for Lighter, then you definitely need to consider picking up his signature W engine. Now in regards to viable disc drive sets for Lighter, and due to being a stun character, the best 4-piece disc drive set would definitely have to be the Shockstar Disco set, which will increase impact by 6% through the 2-piece effect, and as for the 4-piece effect, it will allow Lighter to inflict 20% more daze when dealing basic attacks, dash attacks and dodge counters. So in order to fully utilize Lighter as a stun character, the Shockstar Disco set will be the best set to go with. As for 2-piece sets, there will be a couple of options Lighter can utilize, and they do depend on how you would like to play Lighter. Since you can use the Swing Jazz set, which is generally a great 2-piece for stun and support characters, given it will provide 20% more energy regen, so you can activate the skill much more often. Alternatively, there's both the Hormone Punk and Inferno Metal sets which can provide an overall boost in damage. Given the Hormone Punk provides 10% attack and the Inferno Metal set provides 10% fire damage. Lastly, if you are using Lighter on a Disorder team, then either the Freedom Blues or Chaos Jazz sets would provide 30 Anomaly proficiency, which would contribute to the overall damage when triggering burn. So it is completely down to your preference. But overall, I would recommend the Swing Jazz set due to being a great universal 2-piece for majority of characters. As for the main stats to prioritize on your disk drives, you would ideally want either crit rate or crit damage on the 4th disk drive to enable Lighter to deal more damage, fire damage on the 5th disk drive to of course further increase his damage, and as for the final disk drive, impact will certainly be priority in order to stun enemies much quicker. As for the substats, you would definitely want to prioritize both crit rate and crit damage first, then attack percent, pen and flat attack, which are pretty much the stats to always prioritize on your stun characters. Now as for should you summon for Lighter, more than ever whether you summon will depend on your account and the direction it's going in. Since if you do have characters such as Ellen and Soldier 11 on your account, then Lighter would be a great character to pick up. Also, if you don't have many stun characters as you may have skipped Changli and you still haven't managed to pull Lycon, then Lighter would hold immense value for your account. Now a major factor to consider for the future of your account is that if you are looking to pick up Miyabi, which I assume a lot of players are going to, then Lighter will likely be one of the best characters for Miyabi, so if you can ensure you are able to pick up both, then it would definitely be worth considering to pick up Lighter. However, Lighter isn't a must for Miyabi as she will definitely have other strong team comps to play in. Also, if your account already has enough stun characters, then there really isn't any pressure to summon for Lighter. Given our current stun characters are fully capable of carrying out their role and do hold enough longevity to last a while. So all in all, you would just need to see if Lighter will be ideal for your account. Though above everything else, if you are simply a fan of Lighter, then feel free to summon, as he will certainly hold a lot of value and longevity due to being our first dual attribute buffer. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel for more ZenlessZoneZero content, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also drop a comment down below on whether you will be summoning for Lighter or will you be skipping. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.